Welcome to Demystifying Tech, a business cloud podcast which examines the impact of technology on industry and wider society. In each episode, a technologist from one of the UK's most innovative companies will break down a key area of tech and offer practical takeaways for your business. In this episode, we are joined by Spencer Earp, MD for the EMEA region at global enterprise Pendo. The company helps clients from Fortune 500 enterprises to B2B tech startups to educational institutions and healthcare systems develop software products. Today, Spencer will help us to define what we mean by a tech mindset, explain why every business is now effectively a tech business, reveal how Pendo can help traditional enterprises to put technology at the forefront of their approach. Spencer, thank you for joining us today. We've both just come back from our holidays and we're all refreshed, so this is going to be a cracking podcast.
Thank you for the welcome. Yes, first day back, so ready and raring for you.
First of all, what we need to talk about is what a tech mindset actually is. Can you define it for us?
Yeah. So I'll give you my perspective. So for me, a tech mindset is having a digital or tech first approach to solving problems, leveraging technology to be more efficient, more collaborative, and being relentless in the sort of pursuit of finding a way to leverage technology for that outcome. Mindsets are talked about in a number of different areas: product mindset, customer mindset, growth mindset. I think a tech mindset is purely an extension of many of those other mindsets that people refer to.
I guess it's a lens, isn't it? So if you look at something like diversity, you always have that as a lens now because of the changing, nature of society and business. You always kind of have that, we have a panel for Business Cloud, for example. Do we have a representation on our panel, for example? So if we look at through the lens of technology, every business is basically a tech business now. How does that manifest in reality?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a fair statement. And for me, the biggest noticeable difference in becoming a tech business, so traditional companies sort of making that transition to becoming a tech business, is really where technology becomes part of the product or the service that company is delivering for their customers, and not simply using technology to support the operation of a company. Maybe the sort of initial move by many companies over the last few decades are using technology to help manage areas of their business and make them more efficient. This transition sees tech playing a much bigger role, and providing tech access to parts of the organization that maybe they didn't historically. So at an executive level, new titles like CTO and CIO and CPO, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer, Chief Product Officer, titles with budgets and teams and power. And for me, that's really how we've seen, every business becoming a tech business.
So we've seen that personally. So I remember talking to somebody about cybersecurity, and it moves it away from having that CIO, for example, that CTO at board level, moves it away from, well, someone who's already on the board has responsibility for this, and it's an afterthought. Actually, here's someone who's making that case, and actually it's at the forefront of every decision that's made in that business. Would you say that was the sort of the trigger for the change, which has been many years in the making?
Yeah, no, I agree. And, to some extent, you've heard it sort of termed like the promise of tech. It has certainly, I've been at this for 2.5 decades, or working in and around this space. But certainly I think over the last decade, we've seen some massive changes and, big advances in fundamental aspects of technology, like cloud and mobile, have really made it easier for people to access technology. You kind of compound that with the impact of the pandemic, obviously in the last few years, that really provided an accelerator for many companies to think about transformation, digitally transformation. Maybe companies that were lagging a little bit, they were forced to make changes. And then more recently, in the last year, you add the promise of AI and machine learning into that. It feels like that's just another shot in the arm in terms of an acceleration of this trend that we've been seeing for the last 10 years. So it certainly doesn't feel like it's going to slow down anytime soon.
Absolutely. And actually, when we talk to people now, it's like, why aren't you using technology? So if, someone may come to us and say, oh, I've had this problem. It's like, well, have you not thought about using this tool? And actually, people now are so much more on board with what's available and out there. And there are so many businesses providing those services. One of those businesses is Pendo, obviously. But let's talk about your good self for a moment. So you've worked for 25 years across a variety of tech categories, building and propelling organizations with European go-to-market strategies. How's your approach evolved over your career as a technology capability has accelerated?
Yeah, well, yes, I have had the pleasure of working in the industry in many great companies over the 25 years. And I guess in some ways there's been, lots of change throughout that career, just in terms of the way that we work. Just, this call or meeting that we're having now is a, good example of one of those. But there are, I'd say the fundamentals remain the same, in that to drive the sorts of transformation and outcomes that businesses are looking for, focusing on people, process, and technology, thinking about how we approach those three aspects, still true today. And I was introduced to that very early on in my career. And that, if you simply focus on one of those tenets only, your chances of success are really slim. So if you really only come at it from a technology perspective and don't think about how you bring the people with you or the underlying processes that you're looking to improve or change, then all the technology in the world won't help with that. So yes, a lot of change, and adapting to that change is really important. It's the one constant, I guess, that I have experienced, but the fundamentals remain the same.
So you've brought your experience into Pendo now. So you've been there a little more than a year, did you say?
Yeah, just over a year. I joined Pendo. It's been a very fun and fast-moving time to join the company. So just over a year. So
can you give me an example of how one of these traditional companies, one of the clients of Pendo, if you like, how you've helped them to adopt a tech mindset? Yeah, absolutely. I guess the first thing to say is, we really do have a very broad range of customers across many different industries, all the way across our region of EMEA. Large companies and smaller companies, startup companies at the beginning of their journey. But I think the one really interesting thing that kind of reinforces the point we've been making is that there are lots of different companies, some maybe that you wouldn't expect to be really taking advantage of technology. And I think the one that I'm going to talk about here would be a company called Essity, which is a company headquartered out in Stockholm. They operate in the hygiene and health space. So their sort of products are ranging from tissue paper and baby diapers through to orthopedics and wound care, a really broad range of products. And we have been working with them to address a major problem that they've faced over the last couple of years, with a massive increase in raw material costs, and the impact of that on their margin and profitability. And so they were running a project that was effectively their order to cash process globally, and leveraging technology, CRM and CPQ technologies to help manage that process. And that project was the second iteration
of an attempt to make an improvement in this area, and they were using Pendo to improve their ability to bring that change to their teams. So going back to the point I made a little earlier in terms of technology, people, and process, they had really struggled to get their teams to adopt the new systems and the processes that they needed to bring to life. And we were working with them to help guide their employees through that process. That project's been a huge success for them, and we're now working with them on a number of other projects. So, a really good example of what I would describe as initially a very non-tech company leaning into the use of tech in the way that they are managing their business and working with their customers.
Now, Pendo's a global organization, but it does have a heavy presence in the UK. Can you just give me a bit of a flavour of what that looks like and what the plans are?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a global company. We're headquartered out of North Carolina in the US. But we're a fully functioning EMEA operation. Our EMEA headquarters is here in London, where we have teams covering sales, marketing, customer success, and even product teams. We also have our community team. We have a part of our business called Mind the Product that are also based out of London here. And as I said, some of our product teams based up in an office in Sheffield. We have some additional product and customer success team members based out in Israel. So all in all, in the UK, we're about 130 people. As I mentioned, our office here in London where I'm sat today is in the heart of the city. We're in Shoreditch, just off Old Street Roundabout. We have huge ambitions for our EMEA business. We have a massive opportunity to grow our business in the region. The types of customers that we are servicing in our US business, which is obviously a more mature business, is replicated by those companies here in Europe. So the opportunity for us to kind of repeat the success that we've seen in the US here in EMEA is really strong. And so we're investing in building that business out over the next few years.
So your company's done some research which has shown that actually there's a lot of traditional companies in the UK that are thinking and acting more like tech companies now. So they could be in finance, they could be in farming, they could be in manufacturing or advertising. And what you actually did was you went and surveyed more than 500 R&D leaders and senior leadership figures at large companies with 500 plus employees outside of those core tech industries, if you like. So all the sectors which aren't tech. And one of the things that you found was that almost half of traditional enterprises are now considering themselves as tech companies. How are they adapting their approach?
Yeah, I think it was a really interesting survey. And I think the key things for me, sort of the trends across the different companies is one, covers some of the points we've already discussed here. So it's shifting the organizational mindset to a digital or tech first mindset. And one of the key aspects of that for me is the close alignment of technology to the overarching business objectives of the company. So I think those businesses that are going through that transition, I think, seem to be the most successful in making that move. One, I guess, way companies have approached that is that they've hired people from technology companies or with technology or product backgrounds. So to help with that sort of transition of the mindset, bringing in talent from the technology space, I think, to sort of lead the way and share their experience. In addition to that, a number of companies have made acquisitions of technology companies to help bolster their own capabilities, whether those are product capabilities or their teams. We've already touched on this. I think using technology as part of the product and the service, not just to run the company, that I think is a major one. And related to that is using data to better inform decisions that they're making about product direction, product roadmap, where to invest, where not to invest. And again, using technology to help provide that data to give people the chance to make better decisions is, I think, a key move for many of these companies that are going through that change.
Some of the other findings from the research, there's a great need for product management and growth roles. 51% of respondents said these are key hires to achieve their business goals. And then one of the other key findings was that product analytics tools rank the highest amongst product teams in non-tech companies in terms of return on investment. So 75% of people that have already adopted these have seen a positive impact, with 4 in 5 valuing the ability to make informed decisions and 78% finding that product data and analytics are increasing efficiency when building digital products. So where can we go and find more about that research?
So the research survey or report is available on our website. We'd happily direct you to that for anyone to have a read of the report, and if there's any additional information behind those sort of summary findings, we'd welcome the opportunity to talk directly with me or one of the team here at Pendo. But as you touched on, I think the impact of product analytics to those that have invested is huge. So again, going back to the point I mentioned earlier in terms of the opportunity for us to help customers here in the region, it really just underlines that point.
There'll be a link in the description for the podcast stroke YouTube video, however you're viewing this or listening to this today, to read more about that. One last question before we get onto our reader questions. What features, priorities, tools, and strategies are traditionally associated with tech companies, do you say? And how can non-tech companies adopt them?
Yeah. So, and some of, forgive me, some of these might repeat some of the things I've already touched on, but probably worth reinforcing anyway. So I think, number one, it's that link between technology and the business. So really aligning the use of technology, whether that is as part of the product and the service and or to run the business, but ensuring that there's that really close link to the business priorities, the business objectives. And that's not just a one-off event, that connection is maintained through time, and that particularly leaders in the organization stay connected around that. And for me, the key change many non-tech businesses go through when they start to have more of a technology or a digital mindset is the need to be able to work more quickly. So the use of the term agile kicks into place. A lot of traditional companies have generally made decisions and made changes over long periods of time. The shift to digital or tech mindset approach is that things can happen much more quickly, and being willing to test and try things, and not always those things to work out exactly as you had intended, and be comfortable with that. I think that's a major shift. I guess the other element is linking to that to some extent is just constantly being aware of the changes in the technology, the infrastructure that's available, so that you can take full advantage of those changes. So I, again, touched on AI and all of the hype maybe that's been around that in the last 12 months. But thinking about how can we take advantage of those and test those and see what's right for our business is a really good example. And I think the last one maybe relates to how companies decide what they will own and what they will maybe sort of partner or buy from other companies. Again, a lot of traditional companies have sort of historically owned a lot of this capability internally within their own IT organization or within their company. The sort of ability to leverage all of the technology that's coming to market quickly, it means that you need to partner with a range of vendors and make sure that you're well set up to be able to do that. And working with other firms is sometimes more complicated and harder than working with your own internal team. So I think changing the mindset to be able to adapt to that is a key thing.
100%. I think if you try and build everything in-house, there's an argument to say if you build something in-house, you can then sell it. But actually, if that's not your expertise, if you're not going to actually put all the hours into that, and you're not going to build the teams to be at the absolute cutting edge of that technology, you're better off just partnering with organizations and sort of harnessing their expertise and their knowledge and their customer success, their tech assistants and all that kind of good stuff to make sure that you're actually focused on your core product and actually hitting the right audience and maximizing your potential rather than trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, as I say, advances in technology are really speeding up, and all of the, increasing demands on us in terms of regulation or security, all these sorts of things make it really difficult for, companies, as you say, that in ST's case, as an example, their core business is health and hygiene, to, be able to rely on companies like us to focus on things that are our core strength. It's a really strong partnership.
So this is the part of the pod where we ask you our reader questions. So we've had one come in that asks, what does a successful product look like? So you've already touched upon the fact that you can iterate with software. It's not like, you launch it, you send it off and that's it, it's gone. But what else can you say? What can you add to that? What does a successful product look like?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I get, this is clearly my perspective, both, I guess, from a professional and maybe as a consumer. There's a lot of aspects I would put that go into, creating a successful product. And the truth is, only one at least from the data that we've got, right? Only one in every 5 products will be successful. Okay. And even fewer have kind of a long life. So for me, a successful product simply is where it meets its goals, right? Where a product exists to solve a problem. And where it does that, i.e. it fits the market, it engages the customer or the user of the product well, it solves the problem and delivers value. And ultimately, it keeps me coming back. And so that, there's what we would describe as a churn rate. There's a low churn rate associated with that product. If you can achieve those things, then for me, that's what I would describe as a successful product.
Yeah, make it sticky, and also listen to the market and make sure that you're actually delivering something that people want and will use. Because, like you say, when it comes to renewing, if they've not used it, they're not going to renew it, are they? So,
yeah, exactly. It needs to solve a problem. There's in our industry, and I think the recent economic change has thinned this out a little bit, but there's a lot of products out there looking for a problem rather than the other way around. So for me, that's the number one. Needs to solve a problem and deliver value to the customer, and ideally be something that they enjoy or find easy to use.
Great insight so far. Adopting a tech mindset. This is where we ask you to kind of boil it down for us into a few quick fire tips. So these are your tech takeaways. Can you boil it down for us? Give us a few tech takeaways.
Yeah, and so again, I think this probably does summarize some of the things I've already talked about. For one, you've got to get everyone bought into the digital transformation process, right? So I talked about this people, process, and technology. So for me, it's all about creating that vision around why, and bringing the team with you. So that needs to be something that is fundamentally driven from the top with a really clear vision and mission around why, and then on a regular basis, really is brought to life for people and managed day to day, so that energy continues, because it is a journey, and sometimes it's difficult, and so you need to kind of bring everyone with you. The other aspect, particularly for traditional companies, is that you enable people to go through that. So it's all well and good just sort of announcing that you're going to do it, but how do you equip people to be able to do it? So enabling people with training and the skills to make that transition is really important. And to some extent, it helps with that first point in terms of bringing everyone with you, right? Where people feel able to make that transition is much easier for people to kind of go through that change. And then I guess the last one is, really is providing the right tools and capabilities to be able to have that kind of digital tech first reality. So it will mean investing in new technology or tools to help people do the jobs that they do. And sometimes, that requires additional investment, new ways of the business thinking about how they operate, and isn't always an easy one to make happen, in terms of a CFO opening the wallet to provide new tools that they may initially deem as kind of nice to have. So for me, it's like thinking about this as a holistic approach and getting everyone bought into that end vision.
We always finish our podcasts or webinars with that question: tell me something about yourself that may surprise me. So it could be something personal, it could be something from your business career, but something that maybe you've not told other people before, or just tell me something about yourself that would surprise me.
I don't know if it would surprise you, but I'm a reader and a runner. Really, those are two big parts of my life. I guess something that might surprise people in terms of from a professional point of view. I talked about the fact that we're based here in Shoreditch, in the heart of central London, but we're incredibly lucky and maybe unique to have an outside space here. And so I welcome anyone listening to this podcast. If you're ever passing Old Street, you're very welcome to join us out on the terrace for a cup of coffee and to learn a little bit more about Pendo.
When you say you're a reader and a runner, do you do those at the same time? Are you running a marathon while you're reading a novel? Or?
No, I think I'd fall over. I guess luckily I can listen to some of those if I'm trying to double up. Audible is my savior on that front.
That's a tech first mindset, if ever I heard one. But listen, it's an absolute pleasure today. You've shared your insight into how businesses can embrace a tech mindset. You've got to take people on the journey, partnering with organizations to harness their expertise and instead of trying to build everything themselves, and actually just kind of investing in technology to make sure that, you're realizing the ambition of the company and, tapping all the potential avenues for growth. I think is really important. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Great to meet you. Thanks for taking the time and asking the questions.
If you have any feedback on today's episode, contact Business Cloud on LinkedIn or X, or comment on the video episode of this podcast on YouTube. You can also drop us an email at podcasts@businesscloud.co.uk. If you enjoyed the episode and found it useful, please like and subscribe on your preferred platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and more, to be among the first to hear more insights from renowned UK technologists. Thank you for listening, and see you soon. Demystifying Tech is a Business Cloud podcast produced in partnership with pan-European B2B tech PR and communications agency Taito. New episodes are streamed on Business Cloud's YouTube, LinkedIn and Twitter pages from 12 p.m. on the second Friday of every month, while you can find all episodes on YouTube and all major audio podcast platforms. Subscribe now so you never miss an episode.